Hey guys, and welcome back to Garden of Kaylin. Cue the music.
Where plants run free with jokes and clumsiness, let's make it green and wild in the Garden of Kaylin.
Happy New Year, you guys. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe it is 2025 already. That is insane to me. One of my plant goals for 2025 is providing better care for all of my hanging, trailing / hard to reach up high plants, the plants that I'm usually kind of lazy about when it comes to care. And as I'm showing you the hanging and trailing plants, I'm also gonna kind of go over some tips and tricks that I use to keep them thriving. And if I can remember where I got stuff, I'll link it below. We'll talk about it and I'll link it in the description. But without further ado, let's get started. Oh, before we get started, hi, I'm Kayla and welcome back. If you're new here, welcome, and be sure to subscribe if plants are your vibe. Now let's look at some plants. Starting with the Philodendron micans. I'm starting with this one because I have so many of them. You're gonna see them all over my house. And the reason I have so many of them is because they grow very quickly, at least in my care, and they are so easy to propagate. The Philodendron micans is such an amazing plant. Look at those dark velvety leaves. It's so easy to care for and so underrated in my opinion. And it's actually kind of surprising that they're so easy to care for because I don't know, these dark velvety leaves are usually kind of high maintenance, but nope, not this one. The micans is also really versatile. Like I have a bunch of trailing ones and then I even have one growing on a metal mannequin, which I'll show you here in a few. It can tolerate low light very well. In fact, the ones that I have kind of prefer lower light. Like I have some kind of in front of or kind of have some bright light going on and they scorch really easily, kind of like this leaf here, which I'm not gonna lie, does look pretty cool, but I know it's not healthy for the plant. So I kind of pulled back as far as lighting is concerned and the leaves kind of almost go black, which I love. Like they get darker the less light they get, but then I don't want to put them in a room with like no window. Not too much, y'all, not too much. But at this point of my plant life, I have so many plants here that I've had to kind of get innovative. I wouldn't even call it innovative. I've just had to create more space vertically by like hanging and having, you know, mounted plants and putting plants on shelves, things like that, because I'm running out of floor space. I mean, I have plenty more floor space, but then like where would the kids run around? It's just not smart for somebody with 3 boys and a dog. So I have found new ways to display my plants, but caring for them is a little bit trickier because you gotta kind of climb up there and stuff. So, and we'll talk about that. But yes, the Philodendron micans I think is an easy plant for someone who's just getting into them. And especially for someone who's just getting into like hanging plants, I think Philodendron micans is a good one. Not all philodendrons would do very well trailing, but for the ones that do, and trailing just means they grow in this trail pattern. So it means exactly what it sounds like. They trail. So some are climbers, some are crawlers. But for trailing plants, yes, Philodendron micans, perfect. So as of me filming this, I have this micans, which just hangs out in my office on this little shelf, and I'll show it, I'll put a clip in. Then there's one by my front door. My favorite one of all time though is the one that I have that I mentioned was hanging on a metal mannequin. It's not doing so great right now because it's in a very small pot and it needs to be repotted desperately. So I just haven't gotten around to it yet. We'll get there. Hopefully this year I'll get around to it. And then I have one that's kind of new, kind of a new propagation. And y'all, this little shelf was under $20. So it's great. And it just has little like cutout cups for you to put plants in. It's perfect. So got a micans in there too. And yeah, the micans is just, like I said, a very versatile, gorgeous, velvety, dark leaf plant that adds elegance to like whatever space. It's very exotic looking, but it doesn't have an exotic price tag, nor is it hard to find. So I think that the micans is a staple, or should be a staple, in anybody's plant collection. And if you don't have one, find a neighbor or a friend who does and just clip a piece off. Ask them first, of course. And you'll have your own like this in no time. Hands down, one of the best ways to display trelling plants is in these little planters that have these flat backs, because you can just mount them up onto a wall like I have this one, or you could just set it. You could just set it somewhere. You don't even have to mount it. You could just put it right on the shelf, which I have a few of these on this shelf back here too. Then you can also, like in my cabinets, in my greenhouse cabinets, I have magnets on the back of here. And since they're metal, I just plop them right on there. It's perfect. So there's such a variety of ways that you can utilize these flat, I don't know what they're called, like wall planters. They're just very versatile. And I got mine in a pack of, I think, 6 from Amazon. I'll link them in the description. And if I'm not mistaken, they also come in different colors now. So this plant is a little bit different, I think. This is my Peperomia Hope, and we have been through so much. She slowly started coming back around about 7 months ago. I had to start her all the way over, which was fine. There's a lot of bald spots, which is weird because I have this almost right under a grow light, so that kind of throws me off. But as long as she's not dying, I'm okay. I found that loving on the Peperomia Hope less goes a long way. So I was apparently overwatering, and you can actually see some yellowing there. Oh my gosh, this plant is so gorgeous, you guys. But you can see where the yellow was starting. And occasionally I still get a yellow leaf or two, or I get some falling off. Right now they're curled under. I just watered it. Like, I'm very hesitant about watering this one now. It seems like these coin-shaped, gorgeous, by the way, leaves kind of store water in them. So I think they can handle a little less watering. Basically, don't overdo it. Anyway, this is a plant that I actually just have one of, which is like weird because I have this weird sick addiction to propagating for some reason. The Peperomia Hope does flower, but the flowers are a little bit unremarkable to me. Mine hasn't flowered. I just looked them up online and I was like, okay. The leaves are kind of where it's at on this. So, oh my gosh, I cannot wait for it to get big and full. I think it's going to be so amazing, looking kind of like a Dischidia to me. It could be a Hoya too. It could kind of give me Hoya vibes a bit. So yeah, this is my Peperomia Hope in my little flat wall planter thingamajig, and I just love it. Macrame is one of my favorite ways to display hanging plants. This is my black pagoda lipstick plant, and as you can see, we've been having some issues with and there's literally water dripping from this, with over watering. And I find that I tend to overcompensate with watering because in the past I had a lot of problems with this from underwatering. So right now it's just about finding the perfect balance. I do keep this one hanging just kind of right above my head. And as you can see, it has a little hook right here. So I just hook these. I have other hooks that just screw into my ceiling. And once you screw them into the ceiling, and some people, depending on how heavy the plant is going to be, want to go ahead and put like the drywall anchors. You want to use drywall anchors. Sometimes I do, sometimes I kind of don't. And I've never had one fall or anything, but don't listen to me. Do what you're supposed to do and use drywall anchors. But yeah, I just have it hanging, and you can kind of, if you wanted to, you could adjust the height by just tying a knot in them. I know a couple of my plants I have knots tied in just to kind of adjust the height that I want it at. So this one is kind of right under a grow light, a pendant grow light that I have just right up, again, above my head. You can't really see it on the camera, but yeah, these work perfectly. A problem that I've encountered that you might want to consider before using something like this is making sure that you have some kind of something to catch the water if you're not going to be pulling it down. For example, if you put a regular pot in this, and this, by the way, you see how it's just like kind of braided. You can put almost any size planter in these because it's very adjustable. So I can put a really small one in there. I wouldn't say like put a massive pot in them regardless, because obviously it's going to be way too heavy anyway. But it is very versatile as far as like the pot size. And if there's drainage holes in it, if you go to water it, like if you're not taking it down, watering it and letting it drain out completely, then hanging it back up, then you have water all over your floor or your carpet or whatever. So I do have a pot here that kind of has this little reservoir. You can kind of see it there at the bottom. See the little reservoir? So that just kind of catches excess water. But onto my pagoda lipstick plant. We have our shares of ups and downs, and right now we're on our way back up from, again, an overwatering spell. And as I mentioned before, hanging plants can be a little bit more difficult because you can't really see like at eye level. You can't check for pests at eye level. It's kind of hard to see inside the pot if you're, not right up on it. So they can be a little bit more tricky. So this was a great plant to put up there because I don't have to deal with pests on this one. I've never had pests on my black pagoda. These are kind of drought tolerant, but not drought resistant. For example, you can let them dry out all the way before watering again, but they're not going to enjoy or appreciate just being up there completely dry for too long. This one is a little bit different. Mine is a little bit different because there is a vent kind of right above this. So these dry out fast. So that's why I have personally, and it's not recommended for you to put your plants under vents. I can kind of get away with it because I have a little bit of experience with it and have an understanding of like what that means for my plants. And like what I can and can't put up there under the vent. But anyway, it dries out faster than a normal one would, but it gets really great light up there. So you can really see that color coming through. Like this is such a beautiful little diva. And I don't mean diva in the sense that it's like super high maintenance. I just mean it's kind of like the cool girl in high school who was like really pretty, but also really nice. It has these dark and light green leaves at the top that are kind of, I don't know, extraterrestrial if you ask me. And then the undersides are purple, y'all. The reason why I wanted this one hanging was because when I have them up high, I can really enjoy the view of like both sides of the leaves. So you see a lot of the undersides, but you also can see a lot. It's just, to me, it just looks better to have it hanging. And it does well hanging. I think it's gorgeous. And it does get a little bit heavy, which is fine because I have it in really, really light, airy soil. And I have this like plastic, very light pot. So it works out. Another cool thing about the pagoda is the cool flowers. I think they're very strange and unique looking. In fact, oh, there's two there. So there's another one coming. And then it just keeps flowering. So here's another one coming in. Oh, it's great. It's great. But the first time I saw this, it scared me because I thought it was some kind of like, I don't know. I thought it was a bug at first. Now looking at it, why did I think it was a bug? I don't know. But this one flowers for me all the time now. At first, I couldn't get it to do anything except for die and crisp up. But once I started caring for it properly, it got in order real fast. And as you can see, like I have all these new shoots coming out from it. I really love the black pagoda lipstick plant. I think that it's such a great and beautiful hanging plant. Okay, so this next one may look a little bit plain up close, and admittedly it is a little bit plain, but this plant is actually a cactus that bears edible fruit. This is my Pereskia aculeata, and I find it to be quite charming. Now, I don't have this one in very bright light, but the more light it gets, the more bright the leaves get. And I love that. But also, it has like this orangish red tint to the undersides, which is not very prominent right now, especially in the wintertime. But yeah, it'll go pretty red if I give it the right amount of light. It has obviously, well, I don't know why that would be obvious, but this one has never flowered or given me any fruit or anything, and I don't think that it would indoors. In fact, outdoors, this is grown as more of like a shrub in places like, I think Barbados, if I remember correctly. So yeah, I think that it's such a cool plant because it not only is actually a cactus, and it actually has little spikes on it. Let me see if I can show you one. Okay. Do you see? I don't know if you can. Okay, I'm having a hard time. I'll try to get a close-up of it. But there's actually little spikes on this, which I found out the hard way, by the way, when I was repotting it. I just find it to be such an easy care plant for such a high reward. And even though I don't see these often, in fact, I had never seen it before or since, I think that it was a great find because it was only like 15 bucks when I got it. And I got this one from Chimera Tropicals sometime last year, and it has just really taken off. It's also kind of versatile because I had this one up on a trellis at first and it looked great on the trellis too, but I found that it was very quickly over and over outgrowing that trellis. So I decided hanging was a better way to go. I would love to fill this pot up a little bit more. So you can see there's like only 2 plants in here. It's in a macrame. You can't just hang it in this. You have to put it in some kind of cash pot. So that's kind of what I have going on here. And it's a perfect little combination. Whenever it dries out, I don't even pour it inside the plant. I just pour it inside of the reservoir and it bottom waters it for me. So sometimes, I know I said don't do drainage holes in hanging planters, but I actually have one in a pot that has a drainage hole. And what happens is, let's show you guys how green I am, okay? Reducing my carbon footprint, I think. I don't know, maybe. But I'll pour it in the one above this one because I have a macrame that has 2 holes or 2 carriers, so to speak, for your plant. So I'll pour it in the one right above it and it just drips down into this one. And I'm saving water and saving the planet, one plant at a time. But yeah, it's just such a cool plant. And the fruit that it grows are gooseberries. I think they're called gooseberries. And also the leaves are edible and have some kind of something properties, but you can eat the leaves. I'm not gonna try it. I don't know, I better look up the right species of Pereskia before I go munching on it. But yeah, isn't this such a lovely little hanging plant, especially in this white pot? It's perfect. Hoya is one of my favorite genus, especially to have trelling or hanging. Specifically this Hoya polyneura, you guys. I wish I could show you this plant. In fact, I can show you this plant when I first got it and how much it has really grown since then. So of course I then had to go out and get other versions of the polyneura because I just became so obsessed with it. So this one's a little bit different because I don't have it in macrame. It's just in a self-watering planter. No way to really hang it. I could hang it in macrame technically, but another way that I display hanging or trailing plants is by putting them on shelves kind of higher up. And I specifically love to fill out every space on that shelf so that you can't see any gaps in between my plants, and just to kind of have them cascading down. Last November, I actually completely redid this entire shelf. So all these plants were put here a little bit over a year ago, and this is how they look now. I think it's so amazing, but my Hoya polyneura has definitely had the most growth out of all of the plants. A difficulty that I find with hanging plants is lighting. So I typically see people hanging plants right in front of their window, like right in front of the window, but a lot of times that plant is just hanging above the actual light. So what happens is there's all these leaves and stuff at the bottom, but the inside, like the inside of the plant here, for instance, this one's in semi-hydro, but inside will be kind of bare. So it'll be like 2 or 3 long vines that are lush and beautiful, but it's completely bald at the top. And that's a result of hanging them in front of your window. So what I have to do is create some other light source. So in my case, I use grow lights a lot. But I have to create some other light source so that they're not growing bald at the top too, which is a bit of a challenge and not something that everyone has to do, of course. But what I would recommend is lowering your plants. That's why I always get really low hanging macrame planters, because yes, I want them to grow lush and full and trail downward, but I also don't want them to be bald at the top. So for my plants on the shelf where this polyneura lives, I have a track light that kind of shines directly in front of them. And that kind of just makes sure that they all grow in one direction, because that's what I want them to do without them being too bald at the top. So it kind of works out in my favor. And the polyneura doesn't absolutely need direct bright light, but I found it to be very beneficial so far. And the reason why I love the polyneura is because, well, a lot of reasons actually, but The polyneura, the way that the leaves grow in this mermaid tail-like pattern is so pretty to me, y'all. The one that I have upstairs, it flowered and it just, it took me out. Number one, I was not expecting it to because the plant is so young and so new and so tiny. And then number two, because it flowered from underneath. So it took me a long time to even notice the flower. The flower was almost completely spent by the time I noticed it. And I was like, oh my God, I literally screamed. So yeah, the flowers on the polyneura are weird because they grow underneath the leaves. And this is so dusty. I should be ashamed of myself. There's literally dust flying off of it. But they flower underneath, which is so cool. Definitely a plant that would be kind of low light tolerant too. This is one of my favorite Hoyas. Hoya in general, I have a lot of them trailing because they're Hoyas and they look great that way. I think I have a Hoya in every single hanging method that I use. I think that they're such a versatile plant. And of course you don't even have to have them hanging either. You can just have them on a shelf or, you know, in your cabinet or whatever, on the floor if it's big enough. Keep in mind with a lot of Hoyas, they tend to get a little bit heavy. So that's just something you want to consider when hanging a plant or putting it on a shelf. Like you need to know how much they weigh. I'm not saying put them on a scale or something, but look at your shelf or look at your macrame. Usually when you buy something that is supposed to be hanging or mounted, it tells you what the weight capacity is. Definitely pay attention to that. Yeah, don't play around with that stuff. The macrames and plants that I have like installed into the ceiling aren't so bad, but for something that I'm going to be putting several plants on, absolutely I'm paying attention, especially when you're going to be watering it. So you want to keep in mind that it gets heavier once it's watered. And another important factor is it in semi-hydro? So this one's in pond, in this self-watering container, and pond weighs a lot more than just my airy aeroid or Hoya mix would be. So yeah, that's something that I have to pay attention to as well. This is my Cebu blue pothos that I keep on top of a bookshelf. The bookshelf is pretty high, so it kind of trails for a minute. I love the silvery, like grayish, greenish, and blue, depending on how you're looking at it, color of the leaves. And believe it or not, the Cebu blue pothos actually will fenestrate if you let it climb and get big enough. I experimented with it climbing and I couldn't keep up with it. It was just way too thirsty, and keeping the moss pool moist, it was a lot. So I decided to continue to let these trail, and this is another one that I have several of because I keep propagating them. And the reason I keep propagating them is because, like, if you look down here, they start to get bald. So the reason they start to get bald is because, like I said, I have them on top of a bookshelf, and right when you get like right here, it starts to reach like where my bed blocks the window. So the ones down don't get that much light. So this is where the majority of the light hits it, and it's not even highlight. This is all the way across the room on the completely other side of my windows, and it still grows beautifully. So this would be a great low light plant. And the contrast with the white is amazing. The contrast with the black is amazing. And like I said, this doesn't have any drainage holes. So this is just kind of a decorative pot. And then I have it in a nursery pot on the inside of here. So, you know, so I can water it. But one of the things I was telling y'all about is how if there's only light coming from like on the side of it, or at the, you know, it's not at the top, there's no overhead lighting, then it starts to get really bald. So you see how bald that is on the inside, but it's like lush and full throughout here. It's because it's only getting light from this area. You know what I mean? For this one, I guess it's fine for the purpose of like where I have it and how I want it displayed. But if I wanted this to get fuller, I would have to provide some kind of overhead lighting for it to, you know, kind of fill out at the top. But I am in love with the Cebu blue pothos. In fact, I have another one that is kind of tiny right now, and I have it in leca in this little container. This was one of the propagations this is so dusty. Like I really need, these are so dusty, y'all. Seriously, like it's like, I'm just playing, I'm being really dramatic, but it is dusty. So this is one of the propagations that I took from the mother plant I just showed you. And it really is showing off its beautiful, beautiful color. Just imagine this growing up a pole and like being fenestrated and getting some way brighter light. This isn't even really getting bright light either. And look how amazing that color is. The Cebu blue pothos used to be kind of hard to find. It was really hard to find actually when I think back on it. But yeah, now I kind of see them more and more, not as often as say like your heartleaf philodendron or your like golden pothos or anything like that. I don't see them that often, but they're starting to be a lot more available in big box stores now. So if you see one, y'all please get this, like, or just get one from your friend or family. Like I was saying, they're so easy to root. So yeah, I highly recommend this as a trelling plant, as an anything plant really. Another versatile one. Most trelling and hanging plants are usually pretty versatile, but this is definitely one of my favorites and I will never ever let it go. There isn't a single Scindapsus in my collection that doesn't look absolutely amazing hanging. This is such an amazing, unique leaf color. If you ignore the yellowing that I have going on, it's just such a, look at that. That is, don't look at my brown tips, but that is freaking gorgeous. I don't know what's going on with this one. Like every single time I water it, I have some kind of yellowing. You know what? I think I need to repot it. What do y'all think? This definitely, I don't even want to take it out of this decorative pot because I just know it's full of roots at the bottom and it's going to put me to shame. But yeah, these don't grow as fast as say the pothos would, but it's so rewarding when they do start getting big. This one was a little bit wonky at the bottom, so I just ended up cutting a bunch of them off and just rerooting. This is another one that I have all over the house because I keep propagating from it. In fact, I think I have one climbing. I have one climbing somewhere because I'm kind of trying to see what it looks like if I let it climb and let the leaves get bigger. But anyway, all of these Scindapsus, all of the ones like this in my collection look amazing when you let them trail. They look amazing when you let them climb or put them on a trellis or something like that. They look great then. I think that they size up better when you let them kind of grow up something, but I do love how they look just falling out of a pot as well, like this one. The only downside is this plant tends to get a little bit heavy too. So I don't have anything in like, well, the treubii gets heavy. Like the silvery and Scindapsus, I think that's what, the one with the spots on it. I don't know, I'll have to look it up because I have too many plants now to remember all these names, but those are a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter. So I do have several of those hanging in pots around my house, but this one is, as you can see, the leaves are a little bit bigger. They're a little bit thick and kind of waxy like. So I don't really like to have these hanging from a ceiling or anything. I prefer them to just be kind of sitting on a shelf. But yeah, this is such a charming little guy. And I'm thinking now that I'm looking at it, well, I've been thinking about it for a while now, actually taking it down from the shelf because this is pretty, it is, but this is just so much better. And I want to be able to see the plant from this view as opposed to this one. You know what I mean? Something to definitely think about. But get a Scindapsus. I think this is another one that everybody should have in their collection. Even if it isn't this one, there's so many other varieties to pick from. And each one of them is so beautiful in its own way. So I highly recommend this one. But if you want something that is a little bit slower growing and isn't going to take up a bunch of space really quickly, then I highly recommend this one for your trelling plant because they do, like I said, take a while to get, you know, overgrown. If I don't love nothing else, I love me a weird, crazy looking plant. And this Rhipsalis definitely checks those boxes. The Rhipsalis is one of the coolest plants to have hanging or trelling. And there's so many different versions of it that I kind of want all of them. They get kind of heavy too, but I think it's worth the risk. So this is actually, I think it's considered a jungle cactus. So I keep this one hanging in my kids' bathroom, like right above their shower. So it's still getting that constant humidity and, or not constant, but you know, when they shower. but look at the crazy spikes on him. And they're actually not spikes, like they're actually fuzz. It's actually kind of fuzzy. So this is such a lovely little guy and such a conversation starter when people are like, what the heck? When they're walking to the bathroom, like, what is that weird thing hanging up there? So yeah, it kind of reminds me of my hair when I didn't wrap it the night before. So we're basically twinsies at this point. Like, I'm really cracking up because I'm just thinking somebody will call me and I'll wake up like, huh? What? Huh? Anyway. So yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite plants. The Rhipsalis, I forget which one this one is. I have another one hanging up above my head too, but I love like these mistletoe looking, like these kind of, I don't know. Something about this plant is somehow mathematical to me. I know these do flower. Mine hasn't flowered. None of my Rhipsalis have flowered. Now that I think about it, none of my Rhipsalis have flowered, and I don't know why. I feel like either way, this is something that is already very interesting enough without the flower. And I can also allow this one to dry out. I let it dry out quite a bit. So, and it doesn't ever, you know, look upset because of that. I just kind of say, oh, I need to water you. I haven't watered you in a while. And he just sits there without complaining or anything every time. Maybe that's why it hasn't flowered. I don't know. But, or it could just be that it's in the bathroom and that's why it allows me to skip waterings. But yeah, I just think that this is a great plant to have if you want something hanging that is not your run-of-the-mill like heartleaf, or, you know, not that anything's wrong with those, but it just, you don't really see these in big box stores. So if you want something a little bit different, I would recommend a Rhipsalis. If you have a bathroom that has a window, may I suggest hanging a maranta in your bathroom? The reason I say bathroom is because these prefer kind of higher humidity. And actually, as I'm saying that, I'm just thinking every maranta that I have is in different lighting conditions, but none of them have high humidity. So do they really need high humidity? This one's doing great. And previously I was not a maranta girl. Like, you could not pay me to get a maranta. And then I kept overwatering them and killing them because I knew that, or I had heard that they like high humidity. So yeah, once I started leaving them alone, all of my marantas started doing well. And I love a maranta as a hanging plant because they don't like trail down and get those weird bald spots. They kind of grow in like these clusters. So here's a cluster up here, but then you see another one starting down here. I just think it is such a beautiful, beautiful plant to have. Oh my gosh, look at the red in that. And then from the back, you can see like there's red on the underside of the leaves too. So when you're looking up at it, it's just like an array of colors just pop out at you. And not all marantas have this same coloring. Some of my other ones have obviously like different colors, but all of them look great. The one on my stairs is my absolute favorite. I love the little display of plants that I have on my stairs. If I could remember to water them more often, they would look a lot better. But the maranta on my stairs is definitely my favorite. This one hangs in my dining room and it's actually in front of a south-facing window, or above, I should say, a south-facing window. And like I told you, when you have no overhead lighting, you get these bald spots that are weird in it. So yeah, you can just, I can always tell when it doesn't have overhead lighting, but it's okay because this part of it is full. I mean, I'm okay. I'm okay with this one not having the overhead lighting. Do forget to water it sometimes, so you see a little bit of brown down in there, but once this gets watered, they kind of perk back up and everything's fine. I may lose a few here and there, but it is, I mean, I think the plant speaks for itself. It is kind of more resilient than I thought that they would be. And I got this as a baby plant. In fact, I got this as a baby plant, took a piece off of it, rooted it, and I now have another one just like this one hanging up on the shelf. And the shelf that the other one is growing on actually gets really, really bright light from a grow light. So it actually surprises me that it's not dead. And the other plant like this that gets that really bright light actually flowers for me all the time, like these little white, like, or light purple, I guess they're light purple flowers that grow on it, and they're just adorable. This one doesn't flower, the other one does, and they're so cute. I think that the secret to all of my marantas is keeping them in pots that don't have drainage, so they don't really dry out very often. And I guess that's a plus. I guess that keeps them watered for longer. But you do have to be careful because you don't want to end up with root rot. If I'm being honest here though, this one is up so high in my dining room that I just like climb up on the bench in front of my dining room table and like pour the rest of my water bottle in it and look, it's fine. It ends up being fine. So I don't recommend doing that. You shouldn't do that. You should not do that for your plants. But I'm just saying, like, all of my marantas are kind of afterthought waters, which are like I said, I'm walking past them and I'm like pouring the rest of my water bottle in them, and they're all looking great. So it might be I don't know what I'm doing right. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know what I'm doing right, but it's definitely something. A trailing plant that keeps me in an absolute chokehold is the Ceratostema. Oh my goodness, you guys, these plants are amazing. As you can see, they trail downward, but they cascade in such an elegant way that it's like, you gotta stop and look at it. And the flowers on these, mine have never flowered. I have two of them. I don't know which one this one is. I'll have to find the name of it. But I also have this Ceratostema, I think pendens back here. And this one kind of reminds me, this is the pendens, and it kind of reminds me of a weeping willow tree. And you can see it has like this bulb right here that it grows from. Oh my freaking goodness. So this one's on a shelf. I don't have it hanging because these are a little bit more difficult to care for than most trailing plants. Like, as you can see, they kind of brown at the tips. They like higher humidity and they're fuzzy. Like, I wish you guys could feel this leaf. The back of it feels like felt. So yeah, I just love the cascading type of trailing plant. I guess it's not a trailing plant per se, but like you could definitely hang or mount this, which is what I see most people do, and it's gorgeous. And this one that I have in Fluval right now because it was struggling when I got it in, and I just wanted to give it the best chance possible. This one and all of their Ceratostema at Equagenera, which is where I get all of mine from, they have just like hanging from, you know, some kind of canopy at the top. Oh my gosh, it's like a curtain of beautiful leaves and flowers that just took me out. These are hard. I have a hard time with these. But yeah, the way that they look, oh my gosh, the way that they look in the wild is just incredible, which is what made me get it in the first place. I would have more. I would have a lot more of them, but they're a little bit more on the pricey end, and also do not, at least in my experience, do well in shipping. So with that being said, this one's starting to, and I've had this one about 6 months now, and it's starting to, this is the new, it been started, as you can see, but this is the new little offshoot that it's put out since I got it. And I mean, it grows on a regular, you know, consistency, but yeah, like I said, it's just kind of harder, a little bit harder to care for than some of my others. So if you're willing to take the risk, and I think that these are well worth the risk, considering how beautiful they are, I highly recommend one of these if you're, you know, more experienced with plants or have a more humid environment. Like if you live in Florida or something, I think that these would be a great option for you to even put outside, like maybe under something covered. I envy you if you can do that, to be honest, because I can't. But yeah, definitely a must-have. Definitely a beautiful like collector's item. Look how those leaves just like fall right into place. They are perfect. You can take non-traditional like trailing plants per se and mount them onto walls and have them displayed that way. And I think that that's such a unique way to save space and show off your beautiful plants. Plants that kind of have longer pendant-like leaves, like the Philodendron yopii. Oh, and my favorite, like anthuriums with long strappy leaves. absolute chef's kiss when those are displayed, you know, a little bit higher up where they can drop down. Another thing I like to do is mount up things like the staghorn fern, even though I have a hard time keeping those watered, God knows. And then I also have a few syngoniums hanging. So I have a lot of plants displayed vertically or up on walls and on the top of shelves that are not your traditional like trailing type plant. And anything that allows you to store something mounted or up on a wall or something can always be used for plants. I literally have a bathroom rack that I'm using for plants right now, and the towel bar at the bottom, I have I think I have a Hoya hanging on it. So you can use anything as long as you can like be creative. You can kind of use anything. So yeah, that's kind of it that I can think of right now for my hanging plants. I have a lot of them now that I'm talking about them. I'm like, I have way more than I realized. And I don't know, I hope this helped somebody out and gave someone an idea. And as always, if you have any tips or tricks for me, bring them on, you know, send them in. So I mentioned before that I got a lot of my flat back hanging planters from Amazon. I'll link those below. And then I got a few from Target actually. And by the way, I was in Target the other day and I saw that they have those out again. So I ended up getting a few more of those. Anyway, that's gonna do it for today's video, you guys. Don't forget to subscribe if plants are your vibe, and I will see you guys in the next one.